Hello and a very warm welcome to a very special edition of Ultimate Pool Extra, because we are live on location in Blackpool. At least one of us is. Scott Ryan, as always, joins me on the show, and I've made the effort to get up to Blackpool, and you're still at home. I guess you're coming up in the next day or two.
Yeah, I'm coming up tomorrow, Thursday. Unfortunately, though, and I just apologise to viewers of the show up front, my neighbour has picked today of all days to have a new kitchen fitted, so you may hear some drilling in the background because she's a very inconsiderate lady who doesn't realise that we're recording on Pool Extra at this moment. But no, I am so excited. But no, I'm not excited for Blackpool because I've got to go in the sea.
Yeah, yeah, I can't wait for that. And I have to say, the sun, you should have come up today because the sun's out. If you come up today, we'd be doing it in the sun shining. I think it's going to be cold for you in the next couple of days to do it. But we are in Blackpool, or Scott will be in Blackpool in the next couple of days, because it is the Pro Series weekend, the first Pro Series, Women's Series and Challenger Series of 2023. Things have changed this year. It has expanded. We've got a lot more professionals this year. It's going to get tougher in the women's, and the Challenger is going to be as tough as ever. But before we get on to the Pro Series, Women's Series and Challenger Series, we are going to just talk about what's happened in this last week. So let's get stuck in with the Champions League. And this week in the Champions League, Neil Raybone came through a very tough group indeed. And actually, on paper, he came through fairly plain sailing because he qualified without having to get a result in his final match. Not really a surprise, Scott, to see Neil come through. I think we both fancied to do the job. But to come through comfortably was a surprise.
Yeah, well, is it a surprise, really? Neil Raybone's an absolute class act who's just had a bit of a tough time on Ultimate Pool. He's been very consistent over the last several years, struggled to find his feet in his first season at Ultimate Pool, had better results last season. But look, make no mistake, the guy is an absolute class act. But what an exciting evening Monday. Forget the fact that it looked like plain sailing for Neil. We had a lot of drama throughout the evening, which was brilliant for us all.
We did, and we can't talk about Monday night without talking about the fact that Stephen Maguire made his Ultimate Pool debut there. You know, the snooker star coming over to the small table game, and we've talked a lot about that and we're going to talk about it a lot more because of there's so many players playing now. But we've seen players like your Mark Selby's, your Mark Allen's, your Tom Ford's come over, and they've gone really, really well. But what that highlights to me, what Stephen Maguire struggled a little bit out there, is because he's not played this game before. He's a snooker player, he's a great cueist, but pool's a completely different game. Whereas those other guys, Mark Selby and Tom Ford in particular, have played, at the highest level with pool. And Mark Allen's played enough pool in his time to have an idea of what he's doing. Quite an interesting point, really.
Well, all I can say from a Stephen Maguire perspective is, with a snooker player, they're going to be able to pop balls, and they're certainly going to be able to put 8 balls in a row. No doubt about that. You could see he was just putting balls. Now, the big thing for Stephen Maguire, he's got a decision to make very quickly. He's got to get himself up to speed. He's got to learn how to play pool, because I think he's realised now it's a very different game. And the other big thing was, these guys didn't fear him. They, in particular, I mean, he's had a couple of touches that didn't go according to plan. But having said that, he put himself in those situations. It was a disappointing evening for him, if I'm being brutally honest. He looked out of his depth at points.
Yeah, but I think it is really worth making that point. It is his first time playing the game, really, essentially. He's got some good friends that do play the game. He's good friends with Scott Gillespie. He's good friends with Jamie Pinette, who's starting to make that journey across from the snooker world to the pool world himself. But it's not as easy. People think, if you're good at snooker, you can jump on a pool table and you're going to find it easy. Yeah, you might find the potting side of it and that side of it easy, but actually, can you get the patterns? Can you get the cue ball control? Especially for the people that don't play the game at the highest level, probably don't realise that. And I'm classing myself in this bracket, that if you are that good at a cue sport, the tiny little differences have more of an effect. For example, the cue ball being smaller than the object ball. Now, for me, I was a half decent player. I couldn't really tell you how much effect that had. But the top players, you go and speak to someone like Gareth Potts about it, he'll tell you how hard that is for him to get his head round and make the differences to control it. And those sorts of things are going to be hard for players like Stephen.
It's a 7-foot table where an awful lot goes wrong, and that's
Yeah.
the first thing, and that's the most foremost thing. On a snooker table, we all start. You started out in snooker. I started out in snooker before you ever played pool. You've got a lot more room for error at points on a snooker table, and you can get yourself out of it. But on that 7-foot table, at times it looked like Stephen was in a world of hurt. He's played people are going to say he's unlucky on the clearance where he's gone in off on the middle pocket, but what was he doing anywhere near it in the first place? It's going to be interesting. We've seen the good in terms of the snooker players that have come across it now. This time we've been a little bit disappointed with what we saw from Stephen. Having said that, this guy is a winner. So he's not going to accept that. He's going to go away and think, wasn't as easy as I thought. I need to put in the miles. I need to put in the practice, and I need to understand the game better. And I'm sure the next time we see Stephen Maguire out there, he'll be a different player.
Yeah, I agree with all that. But what the great thing is having these new players on board. It's exciting. It was exciting to see him play. It's exciting to see where he was at, and it's going to be exciting to see how much he improves over the course of the year. So really looking forward to that. We'll keep an eye on that as the season goes on. But going back to Neil coming through the group, he won his first match. Arf and Dab won his first match, and then it almost became like it normally does. Match 4, when the two winners play each other, that is the key match, because whichever player wins that match then takes control of the night, and that's as it played out. But this was the one key moment. I'm going to show it you now. At 2-0 up, Neil Raybone had a massive slice of luck, let's say, to make it 3-0. And if this doesn't happen, it's 2-1, and potentially the outcome of the whole night changes, because a lot hinged on this shot. Oh, I mean, you can tell by Neil's reaction, he's a little bit embarrassed to take it, because look where the cue ball finished. I love his reaction.
But Simon, you can't begrudge him that. And I don't think anybody can begrudge him that little slice of luck, because he hasn't had much since he's joined Ultimate Pool. I have seen him lose matches where he had no right losing, and things just haven't gone his way. So, listen, Neil Raybone's a class act. He deserved that bit of luck. And again, I hope he can build and have a far stronger season than he's had previously on Ultimate Pool, because, listen, if you've only seen him in Ultimate Pool, don't be fooled. This guy is a great, great, great player.
I tell you what, I interviewed him obviously before the show, and I asked him about that. How are you feeling about your overall form with Ultimate Pool? Where are you at? And he, it's easy to forget, actually. He hasn't won a title, yes, but he's still had some good results. He's made a final, he's made a couple of semi-finals, a couple of, he's getting the runs going. He's just not quite getting over the line, and he's a player that we're used to seeing winning tournaments. So it's easy to say he hasn't gone that well, but he has.
No, but he was world number 1 on another organisation, and outright world number 1. He's won a lot, and that's why there were huge expectations for him when he came across to Ultimate Pool. So, and this is kind of it. Viewers of the show, please don't think we're being critical of these players in this sense. Unfortunately, a lot of these players set such a high bar and such a high expectation that for some of these players, a final in a season when they're used to winning tournaments can be perceived as a disappointment.
Yeah, and there's so many players that we can say that about, which shows you. I mean, we haven't seen a platform like this where there are so many deep players everywhere you look. So it is just tough out there. Final thing, because we do need to move on because we've got a lot to talk about with the Pro Series. I want to just touch on Arfan Dad. He had a very tough loss in the Pro Cup against Jordan Shepherd, 4-0 up, and really helped Sheppy get back into that match and ended up losing it. Is this early signs that maybe he's just losing a little bit of confidence out there? Because there was just a couple of times on the night where it looked like he just took a slightly negative option rather than going full out attack. Maybe that's just, or is that just his style of play? I don't know. I mean, are we seeing a player that's just a little bit low on confidence, or is that the way he plays?
I actually do think that he's struggling a little bit with his confidence. In 2020. He won his first big tournament on the World Rules Pool Tour. It looked like he was starting to knock on the doors, being in lots of finals, being very consistent. When he first came across to Ultimate Pool, it looked like he was going to carry that form forward. But for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened. He's had some luck go against him. Make no mistake about that.
Yeah.
But he's also played. He's also played in. He would tell you this by his own high standards. He's not played as he can. This game is just like, we were talking about so much going wrong on a 7-foot table, but so much goes wrong up here, and it's very difficult to get out of that mindset and learn how to win again.
Yeah, agree with that. Looking forward to seeing how he goes this weekend at the Pro Series, but it is Neil Raybone that makes it through on this week's Champions League. And now the bit I'm looking forward to, Scott. We update the scores of our picking battle. You were 1-0 up, but unfortunately I got to pick first, and I go 2-1 ahead, which I'm very happy about. So let's have our look at what we got coming up this week. So we have a pick for this upcoming week's Champions League. You laughing because of the star again?
Yeah, I'm laughing because of the star. I literally, it is so brilliant that you've done that. Like, it makes me laugh every time I see it.
If you win this year, you won't be getting a star. I'll just take the star off mine. Right, come on, let's have a look at this week's Champions League, because this is an absolute belter of a group. Mark Allen, the snooker star, Jordan Shepherd, Pro Cup champion of last year, Carl Morris, the former world champion, Phil Parkin, new professional, all playing in Group 3. You to pick first, Scott, is it, I believe?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let you talk.
Although what a week to pick first. You've got everything there. You've got, for me, arguably the most exciting player on the tour in Jordan Shepherd when he's in full flow. I don't think that there's anybody better or more entertaining to watch. He's got airs of Melling about him, and just how rapid he plays the game. And for those people who have had the opportunity to meet Jordan, he's a really nice guy as well. He's completely unassuming. He's as down to earth as you can possibly get from that perspective. But what I'm really interested in seeing is, will Jordan Shepherd and Carl Morris shake hands before their match on Monday night?
Well, yeah, there is some, it's a spicy little matchup that, there was some, just something between them when they played in year one last year, beginning of last year in the Pro Series. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, if it's all made up or not. I don't know. Look, keep your eyes on that one for sure.
I listen, from a pure entertainment perspective. I mean, I can't wait. I kind of feel like we're old ladies in a knitting circle, Simon. Waiting for the bit of gossip to happen. But for those who don't know, they're two people that probably aren't going to be on each other's Christmas card list. But look at the rest of that group. You've got Mark Allen in there, who, if we look at kind of it going wrong from a Stephen Maguire perspective in his first fray in ultimate pool, well, Mark Allen was completely the opposite in his first fray in ultimate pool, and for me, gave arguably one of the performances of last season. And Mick Hill had to really dig into his reserves to beat him. I thought Mark Allen was absolutely superb. And let's not forget Phil as well, another great player. And, for a new pro this year, they've kind of got a little bit of a free go at it, because a lot of people aren't expecting them, because the field's so stacked. Yeah. They aren't probably banging huge expectations upon their shoulders. So that makes people very dangerous. You can see upsets all around on Monday night, and I think it's probably going to go to a 6-red shootout. But if I was to pick one, it would be Jordan Shepherd.
Yeah, I think going first pick in this group, there's no doubt for me, Jordan Shepherd's the favourite for the group. He's the top pool player of the four right now. Carl Morris is a former world champion, yes, but he's not the player he was. He doesn't, and he'll be the first to tell you that he doesn't commit the time to the game that he used to commit to it. He's still playing, but it's not quite the same Carl Morris. And maybe in this short format, he can maybe pull something out of his box of tricks and actually get the job done. It wouldn't shock me to see him win. Phil Parkin, I thought he hit the ground running as a professional. The performance he put in the Pro Cup was fantastic, coming through his first match, beating Chipperfield in style. Didn't really get a go against Jack Whelan, so you can't read anything into that match at all. Jack was phenomenal. He did 7 off the break. Nothing you can do, 7-1. Mark Allen, so for me, this group comes down, if I'm picking, it comes down to Mark Allen, or I'm picking Jordan Shepherd. You've picked Jordan Shepherd, I'm going to pick Mark Allen. I agree with you. I thought he was fantastic when he played in the Players' Championship. He really was. But more than that, we talk about our players coming from snooker willing to learn. And yes, Mark Allen's played plenty of pool in the past, never really, put any effort in, as in trying to, it's always been fun because he's got a lot of friends that play. So he has played international events for Northern Ireland. But the whole weekend at the Players' Championship, he was always asking all the players, asking me, wanted to learn, wanted to understand certain situations, wanted to understand, why is Mick making the game look so easy? What's he doing? So he was really taking it all on board, and he is really going to learn. And I do believe he'll get better as the year goes on. Not that he's bad to start with. I think his break was phenomenal, and he played a really, really high level of pool. So I expect Mark Allen to, go really, really well this year. And if I can't have Jordan Shepherd, then I'm going to go for Mark Allen. So that's our picks for this week. So far on the picks, by the way, it's gone with whoever picked first, so it's just worth pointing that out. So, yeah, I love the picks; it's good fun. Right, let's move on. That is the Champions League.
You only like the picks because you got to put your little star on your little graphic. That's the only reason you like them. I was getting the phone calls from you when you're going, I think it's gone wrong for me this week. It's gone completely wrong. I think I'm going into the sea. I'm feeling it. Honestly, you're a joke, Webb. A joke.
I'm very much going to enjoy it when we get to see you go in the ocean later on this week. It's worth pointing out, actually, I am a little bit worried that you're not going to turn up because when you were meant to do it in December, that you were nowhere to be seen. And here we are. You're meant to be in Blackpool right now with me, and we could have done it this morning, and you are 500 miles away or something silly.
Unfortunately, I've got work I need to do. I'm really sorry.
Right, okay, that is the Champions League. Make sure you tune in on Monday, 6:30 on Ultimate Pool TV, and it's also on Viaplay and a few other TV stations around the world, so you can watch it in many different ways. Let's talk about the Masters very, very briefly, because we are actually filming this show, Ultimate Pool Extra, before this week's Masters happens, so we can't give you an update of what happened in the Masters this week. If you would like to see the results, because when this comes out, the results will have come out, then go and check out Ultimate Pool's social media. It'll be all over there, and you can see who's come through this week's group. But what we can do is just preview next Wednesday's group and have our picks there. So let's take a quick look at the lineup for next week. Craig Lakin, Tom Price, Chris Day, and Ilda Machado complete the lineup. Slight change there. Wednesday night, Wednesday the 25th. Just a quick note for everybody watching, 6 o'clock, not 6:30. 6 o'clock, the Masters will be going forward. So slight change on your diaries there at 6 o'clock. Who's picked first? Is it? It must be me to pick first.
It's you, Simon. Yes, you, Simon.
Yeah, okay. Interesting group. Craig Lakin plays Tom Price. Chris Day plays Ilda Machado. You have to say this feels like a two-player group, as in two standout favourites in Craig Lakin and Chris Day, the two Ultimate Pool professionals. Ilda Machado, I think, would be a big performance to see her deliver and come through, especially against Chris, who's playing some really good stuff at the moment. But I'm really excited to see how she gets on, and it's going to be a great experience for her on the TV stages. But I expect Chris Day to come through that group. Slightly different for Craig Lakin. He's up against Tom Price, who's got a serious amount of talent, probably a little bit of wasted talent. And if he ever sort of dedicated himself, who knows what he could do in the game, because he really is a talented cueist. But I'm gonna edge Craig Lakin over Tom. So I'm gonna think it's gonna be the two pros in the final. And I am very torn on this one. I think because it's a race to, if this was a race to 6 or a Champions League, I might edge Craig Lakin's way, because I think Chris hasn't quite delivered when he's been out on the main TV stages for Ultimate Pool. He did make the World Final, of course, but he is improving all the time. He's working so hard on his game. But I think because it's a race to 8, I'm just going to edge to Chris Day on this occasion.
Well, it's sound reasoning, and without being disrespectful, it does look very much like one of two there. I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of might have gone Lakin first, only because he had that wonderful result in the Pro Cup prelim.
Yeah,
and he's a guy that, I mean, when he turns up and he plays well, he's really exciting to watch. He's very good cueist. Perhaps he's maybe underachieved a little bit in his career.
Yeah.
So for me, listen, I can't argue with your reasoning. It's one of the few times I'm going to agree with you. It is definitely a two-person situation, and I'm going to go Craig Lakin.
Okay, so that's as I expected. I hadn't made my mind up before, even when I started the sentence of who I was picking. That's how close I think this one is to call. Just a word on Craig. I think he felt like we spoke to him at the Pro Cup. Obviously, great win against Mick Hill. He felt like he wasn't really a pool player last year because there was such a big gap. I mean, for me and for viewers, the pool's on twice a week, sometimes 3-4 times a week. Feels like there's a lot going on, but from his perspective as a player, he had a big gap between tournaments because he got married on one of the tournaments. So he missed the Pro Series event last year. It meant there was like a 6-month gap, and he basically had 6 months without playing in the middle of the year. And I think he's back on it now. I think he is putting the time in. And if he does put the time in on the practice table, then I agree with you. He's got a huge amount of talent. And he's going to be, he could have a very good year this year if he's willing to be dedicated. And it's all right being dedicated, but you've got to be able to get dedicated when you take those tough losses. Then you have to continue to put the hours in.
And that's the beauty of the start of a new season, isn't it? Is everybody's got a clean slate. You can put to bed the ghosts of the previous year and go out and take out of it what you put in. So there's going to be a lot of pros over the course of this season who will see this as a great opportunity. There'll be others who continue to waste their talent. And I think that we're going to have some huge upsets, and there's going to be a couple of players we didn't expect to come through who are going to come through this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the drilling's in full force behind you, isn't it?
I know. Seriously. Yeah, it probably does, to be fair. And it also drowns out the sound of your voice as well, Simon, so that's even better for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, okay, so that's the Masters. Tune in 6 o'clock. Remember, 6 o'clock on Wednesday, so that's one for you to enjoy. One more thing just to announce before we start talking about the Pro Series, and that is the fact that the final wild card was announced this past week as well. And it went to the Maltese superstar, Tony Drago. Very excited to see Tony on board. He's been around the game a very, very long time. You can see they're 57 years old, but he's done it all: snooker, pool, nine boys, everything. He's been, and he's a huge, huge star in Malta. I, for one, I'm absolutely love to see Tony on board here with Ultimate Pool.
I let you in on a little story about Tony Drago the other night. I'm probably not going to bore the viewers with it, but Tony Drago is a player with a little special spot in my heart. Mercurial talent. That's the only way to describe him. He still moves at 100 miles an hour now, and he's like, he's getting on a little bit. The fastest century break in snooker history, the fastest best of 9 in snooker history. But then he went across and rejuvenated his career in American pool and won tournaments in American pool, and also, competed in the Mosconi Cup. He loves pool. And listen, he's still huge in Malta. If it opens people up to watching pool in different countries who might not have watched it previously but want to tune in to see Tony, it's only good for the game.
Yeah, the thing is, you've got to remember, obviously, he's been a star on a global stage for a long time. We know that. But in Malta, he is huge. Cube Sports in Malta is absolutely massive. And the best atmosphere I've ever played in personally was I was playing for the English team, England, against Malta in Malta. And that Maltese team included Tony Drago. And the arena was packed, huge amount of people there watching us, great atmosphere. It was a huge amount of fun. And that, he brings in the crowds in his home country, brings in the crowds all around the world. So great to have him on board with Ultimate Pool. Right, we can finally talk about the Pro Series, the first Pro Series of the year. It's changed this year because we've expanded to 96 professionals. We've talked about that a lot over the last 3 months with all those wildcards and challenges coming up, and the Harriet Haynes joining from the Women's Series as well. But this one's been billed as the Invasion because of the snooker players. The Invasion begins, and there you can see it. 7 of the current crop of snooker players. I'm going to include Tony Drago in that as well because he's a former snooker pro. But yeah, 7 top snooker players, and obviously all the pool players there as well. How much are we looking forward to this year because of the snooker players as well as everything else going on? But what are we expecting at the snooker side?
Listen, let's call it as it is. So you and I started out being snooker players, and the old saying used to be, "Pool is for people that fail at snooker." Let's not kid ourselves. That said a lot. Now, what's going to be really interesting is the snooker public out there are going to sit and they're going to tune in, and they're going to see their heroes, and they're going to see people that they believe, can't lose to a pool player, and they're going to see them get beat. They're not going to see them win as many matches as probably they think they might, but it gives the game that extra bit of exposure. And I am a true believer of this. We'll get a lot of snooker fans that come and watch to see the snooker players, but they'll stay for the immense talent that we've got on show at Ultimate Pool.
Yeah, and the excitement that Ultimate Pool delivers, and not just Ultimate Pool, but the sport delivers. Ultimate Pool are putting it into a package that really is exciting, but the sport itself is a great sport to really enjoy. And I mean, like you said, we both started in snooker, and yeah, I mean that old saying is it's a horrid one, but I'm not going to lie. Back when I only played snooker, is probably what I would have said. But until you start to fully understand the game of pool that is, and the puzzle that it gripped me the minute I started dedicating myself to it, I suddenly was like, oh, this is a great puzzle. I want to learn it. I want to get better. I want to enjoy it more. That's what I love about it. So the snooker players coming over, I think it's going to add eyeballs to the show, and it's going to be fantastic.
And that's something that kind of, Ultimate Pool have done really well to bring these players to the table. Let's make no mistake about that. And it's not a case of they've gone out and chased these players, because that's not happened either. So these players actually want to play on Ultimate Pool. So that's a big tick in the box for me. I do need to respond a little bit to some of the criticism that goes on social media, saying that, do you know what? This is unfair because there are challengers that should have this spot, or there are amateurs that should have this spot. Now, I don't know if you remember when the Mosconi Cup very first started, but that Mosconi team tended to be filled with snooker players when there were a lot of 9-ball players who were a hell of a lot better at 9-ball than the snooker players that were playing 9-ball. Now, for the challenge for Ultimate Pool in 2023, as opposed to 2022. So, Mark Quirk, the chairman of Ultimate Pool, has agreed to come on the show. You managed to get him to come on the show. He's going to come on the show and talk to us about this. But I've spoken to him at points, and he said 2022 for him was about stabilizing the game and giving it the stage that it deserves. So, if you've ever been to one of the Pro Series events, Simon, you can't tell me there's ever been another English 8-ball tournament on the scale, because it's just never happened.
Not even close.
Not even close, right? Not even close. So if you ever go to one of these events, it's akin to a top-notch professional sporting event where you go in, you're greeted by the biggest, it's like a 20-foot Gareth Potts, Steve Singh, and Emma Cunningham as you walk through the door. As you go into the area, there's like an Ultimate Pool merchandise stand. There's a guy who tips your cue. There's a guy who puts balm on your cue. Jim, lovely guy from Lynch's Cue Balm. Then, as you make your way into the arena, you're going past these 10-foot banners of every single professional that plays on Ultimate Pool. You go into the arena, and the arena looks like a proper arena. It doesn't look like somebody's knocked it up in their garage, and that's the reality. So 2022 is about giving the players that platform to play on, and most importantly, the conditions to play on. Now, 2023 has got to be about making the game more mainstream, and the snooker players will aid that mainstream growth. And that, for me, is only good for the game, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I agree. And I understand why people in the pool world, they've become the comments you saw saying, oh, they're taking, challenger spots, if you like. And I just can't get on board with that, because, that just doesn't tie in. Yeah, maybe there are people that deserve it more in terms of they've gone through the rankings and everything else. But these guys are going to bring eyeballs to the sport that it needs, and it's going to help put it on there. And it's really, really important. So, I mean, it's so exciting to see them there. But we have to bear in mind, actually, that some of them are playing in the snooker this week, and actually, if they were to go on and win the snooker tournament, they might not be able to turn up to the pool tournament. But this is one of the things we have to deal with in this sort of dual sport rule world that we're in with these guys. But the majority of them will be able to turn up and play. It depends how they get on, so we'll sort of keep an eye on that. But it is going to be great. I mean, I'll run through the names. If you don't know already, where have you been? Mark Selby, Ryan Bates, Joe O'Connor, Mark Allen, Stephen Maguire, Mark Williams, and Tom Ford. It's not just a few of the snooker players have come across, it's some of the biggest names there has ever been in the snooker world. We're talking about all-time greats. Mark Selby and Mark Williams are two absolute all-time greats of the game. And they're coming across and they're playing pool. It's fantastic to see. And a great challenge, actually, for some of the pool players to sort of, as you said, the pool players, it's a completely different game, and they now need to show it. The performance that Nick Hill put on against Mark Allen in the Players' Championship Group Final highlights that. He had to put on a phenomenal performance, and he even said he felt a little bit of pressure, that almost, not that he was, but almost that I was doing it for the pool world kind of vibe.
He was. Let's not make any mistake about it. You had a lot of snooker fans out there on Twitter ready to hit that tweet button as soon as Mark Allen in his first tournament came across and beat the greatest of all time. They were waiting for it. That's what they wanted. But it didn't happen. Mick Hill spoiled the party for Mark Allen that evening. But from that lineup, you've got two who are in the top 5 greatest of all time in Selby and Williams. Williams is still rolling back the years with that Masters final last weekend. And obviously, Selby winning the English Open several weeks ago. These are players that are still at the top of the game. It's not bringing in, I don't know, Stephen Hendry. He should have stayed retired. Sorry, that's just a personal opinion. But
all 7 of them have had huge success this year. If you want to have some success on the snooker tour, then come and join the pool tour. That seems to be the MO at the moment. It's amazing, really. But very exciting. Absolutely. Well, let's look at the Pro Series as a whole then. So we've expanded to 96 players, means we're starting on a Thursday. So we're going to be starting Thursday afternoon. Make sure you check out Ultimate Pool socials to find out who's going to be playing in the first round of games, and when and where you can watch all the players you want to watch. So make sure you check out the socials for that. But with 96 pros, it's a jump up of about, about 45, 50 extra players. It's a huge change this year. So it's a lot deeper, the tournaments to play in. So it's going to be tough for some of the established. The top 28, essentially top 32, if you like, 28 plus 4 wildcarded players will be seeded through to the last 64, and then it's just a straight tournament from there. And there's 2 tournaments this weekend, so we're going to have 2 trophies, as we have done over the last couple of years with the Pro Series. But another thing that's exciting this year is there's 5 Pro Series weekends, 10 tournaments throughout the year as well. And this weekend is the first 2. The first final will be on Saturday night, and the second one on Sunday night. Who are you expecting to go well this week, Scott? Who are you looking out for, and who do you think needs a good tournament to re-establish themselves?
Well, let's start with the guys who I think need to have a good start to the season. I keep saying his name. He probably hates me. He definitely avoids me if I talk about this. But Scott Gillespie definitely got it. We keep saying his name. He's a great talent. He's somebody that I really enjoy watching. He's actually somebody that is very marketable in the game because he's actually a really entertaining and he's a funny guy. But he needs to start making some serious inroads. Phil Harrison, another one.
Scott made the semi-final last time out, so I think maybe he's trending.
Yeah, like I say, nobody would be happier to see him win because, as I said, I think he's a great guy and he's a great player. When he's in full flow, he's just so good to watch. Phil Harrison, I think he needs to have a big season. The big thing where kind of the established pros who have been with this isn't their first season on Ultimate Pool, they've got banked ranking points. I don't know if that's a good thing or that's a bad thing. Does that mean that you take your foot off the gas a little bit more because you're kind of a little bit protected, or
I don't think anyone's going to look at the rankings till the end of the year. I know what you're saying, and we're still waiting. We're still waiting as here on Ultimate Pool Xtra for full confirmation on exactly what that looks like. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it in more depth when it happens. But I think for these events, players the top players, they just want to win the trophy. There's good, and the other thing is there's really good prize money. So for some players, it might be about getting as deep as possible and trying to earn some money. But the top players, they just want the silverware.
Well, listen, there's several pros that you could say, that there's many pros that you can say they're going to do the right thing, they're going to put the right practice in, they're going to try and peak at the right time for the tournaments. There's others who don't put that time and that effort in. There are several players that have the talent to go really far in these tournaments and potentially win tournaments. But if you don't put that time and you don't put that effort in, it's just not going to happen. And this year, it's even more brutal to win on the series.
Any of the new we know obviously something we've talked about the snooker players, but any of the new challenges that have come up or the challenger wildcards that you're looking to and thinking, this could be a good year for them?
Well, the ones that really stand out is Callum Singleton and Ian Alley for me. We've spoken about them before. They're both great talents. Begs the question, why wasn't Callum a professional the previous season? Okay, it wasn't for him. And Ian Alley, listen, Ian Alley gets pumped up when he plays big players. It's just as simple as that. So he's going to have no fear in playing the top guys, the same as Callum. I'm going to be really interested to see how they do. Harriet Haynes as well is going to be an interesting one. Yeah. Emma, by her own admission, we've seen she's not had the results that she would want on the Pro Series. But Harriet has had results against
already two good wins over the pros. Players. Yeah.
So, what will she do this season, and how will that impact them both in terms of the ladies' series? We saw the difference in Emma Cunningham when she didn't have to play in a pro event. Well, she went in 1-2. Because obviously she didn't have the pressure of playing those matches. The schedule is also hard on the ladies' side. So if you're focusing on a pro, it's a conundrum, isn't it? Where do you put all your effort? And if you've just come off of a really tough win or a really tough loss on one side, and then you've got to go and play another big match on the other side, that's some hard going.
Yeah, no, it is. It's going to be fascinating, actually. We can talk about that a little bit more when we get to the women's series side of it. But actually, does Harriet playing help Emma? Does there become a rivalry, as in which one of them can finish higher in the rankings, who can have the most success, or is it going to help in terms of it's not all the pressure on Emma, because she's always felt a pressure of kind of almost trying to carry the women's tour on her back when I've always felt that she shouldn't do that. She should just play selfish pool. Because that will do the same job. But I think this could help her for sure. Looking at the lineup, let's run through the top 10 as it stands right now. Mick Hill, Chris Melling, Tom Cousins, Stevie Dempsey, Shane Thompson, Jack Whelan, Gareth Potts, Jordan Shepherd and Craig Waddingham. Sean Story is in 10th place. Jack Whelan's already won a tournament this year, as in he won the Pro Cup, which is involved in this season. It's the first event of the 2023 season. Tom Cousins finished like a train last year, absolutely incredible end to the year. Chris Melling's riding high. Mick Hill, Gareth Potts had a disappointing end to the year in terms of their individual play. Obviously, Gareth won the pairs. Sean Story finally managed to get past the semi-final stage as he knocked on the door pretty hard. Where are we expecting this top 10 to continue to be the top 10, or are we expecting other players to sort of get involved in it?
Absolutely not. That will not be the top 10 by a country mile at the end of the season. I don't see it. What's been really good though is seeing Sean Story. He is Mr. Consistency, and he's bound to bounce. He belongs at the higher end of the game. There's no doubts about that. But listen, we haven't even spoken about Liam Dunster.
No, well, that is on my list of people to come to. Is absolutely Liam Dunster. Well, let's do it. There's a lot of people expecting him to just turn up and win. And we talked about this when he played in the Masters, when he lost in the qualifying in the Pro Cup. It's not going to be that easy. I don't get me wrong, we're both in the same camp. We both rate him as highly as possible. We both fully know he's one of the best players in the world. But there's a lot of people who think he's just going to turn up and he's going to win on this stage. And I just don't see it being that easy. It won't shock me to see Liam Dunster win a title this year, but it would shock me to see him win this weekend. How are you feeling on that?
I actually, wow, I've agreed with you twice.
Why is going to show? Come on.
What's going on here? Am I feeling okay?
Yeah.
I might not make it to Blackpool now. No, listen.
Yeah, but that's for another reason though. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. No, he is. I say it and I say it and I say it again. He is the ultimate professional. Pardon the pun. The ultimate professional, hardworking, dedicated, does everything right. Yes, he will win this season. Make no mistake about that. He will win this season. He needs to play his way into Auckland Pool.
Yeah, he's won on this rule set before. We know that, but it's a completely different environment. He has to get used to the stage. He has to get used to the cloth. He has to get used to it. Just I think he's going to feel a lot of external pressure because of where he was and how he's come here and people saying what they're saying, that he's the best player in the world. And I think he's going to feel that pressure now.
And he's also not the best loser, as in he doesn't like losing. And if you speak to him after he's lost, he's not a happy guy, which is exactly
Nobody
what you
likes
want.
losing. But yeah, I agree with you.
But the other thing with him as well is he sets himself these high standards. So I remember interviewing him once before a tournament, and I said, "You've not had the best of runs." He went at me like you wouldn't believe. Like, he was really furious at the fact that I'd brought up the fact that I didn't think he'd had a good run. So if Liam loses, gets off to a bad start in terms of the Pro Series, he will go away. He will do the right things. He will work on it until he wins, because the guy cannot stand losing.
Yeah, that's what makes him fascinating for me, is that he will work it out. I fully believe that. And yeah, there's no getting around it. He's just a great pool player. He just really is. Do you think there's extra pressure for? We know the challenges, the challenger wildcards, the challenges that have come up. Certainly the ones that have come up, they've earned their right to be there. The ones that have been having given the wildcards, I think they're going to feel a little bit of pressure to prove why they've been given the wildcards. But the players that have come across from other areas, the likes of your Liam Dunsters, your John McAllisters, do you think, especially for those two, John McAllister, obviously a former world champion, one of the top players coming across from the Blackpool side of the game, do you think there's big pressure on them? Do you think there's a big pressure on John coming into this weekend?
I think there's less pressure on John. I do think there's less pressure on John. I don't.
Do you think there's less pressure on John because Liam's come across?
100%. There's less pressure on John. Liam's the reigning IPA world champion. He was the world number one. He's the player that everybody talks about. There are people who compare Liam Dunster to Mick Hill out there. That's the pressure that he's got. Now, what's happened with, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, John McAllister was maybe an unexpected world champion at the time, because people didn't realise, possibly how good he was. And let's be honest, since he became the world champion, obviously you've had COVID in the middle, and it took him time to readjust to playing tournaments again. And he perhaps didn't have the success that people expected him to have after he was world champion. So John McAllister, people aren't going to put the expectations on John McAllister that they're going to put on Liam Dunster. Make no mistake about it. But we know how great John McAllister is. Like, let's not kid ourselves here. But we've also seen John McAllister in Ultimate Pool events, and he's probably not giving us the best version of John McAllister, that we know we can see. So for him, I think there's a little bit less pressure on John rather than Liam.
Yeah, no, okay. I think I probably do agree with you. I also think John's quite a laid-back character, and I don't think he really cares what I don't think he's feeling any external pressure. I don't think anyone's, he can almost, as much as he probably ever has done in his career, fly under the radar for this weekend.
He does.
Sure. Yeah, no doubt about it.
But don't be surprised to see him winning one. Don't be surprised to see him winning one.
He's that good a player. He's that good.
He's
quality. He's won plenty of pro titles in Blackpool World. He's won the World Championships. There's no doubt for me. He's been to another World Championship final as well. So he's not a fluke, and he's been there twice. So yeah, big.
Keep your eyes out. Keep your eyes out, and I will say this: keep your eyes out for his ability to play a skill shot. He is absolutely incredible at playing skill shots, and
possibly the best I've ever seen at that.
I agree. So I've seen him make.
Yeah, we're talking specifically about the one onto the other when the ball follows it in.
That skill shot.
That's phenomenal. Yeah,
and I know that Ultimate Pool is probably the best stage for him to do it, because the social media team are gonna. I get so excited when they see him play a few of those shots, because he's absolutely incredible at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, looking forward to that. Well, as I said, all the action gets underway on Thursday afternoon. So we don't know who's playing on the TV tables yet. We'll find out. It will probably be announced by the time this is coming out. So make sure you check out socials. Time for us, though, Scott, to have our picks. And I have not got a clue. As I am the reigning champion, I'm going to do the decent thing and let you have the first pick. We're going to pick two players, because there are 2 tournaments, but the players can win either tournament. It doesn't matter. We're not picking for the specific one.
You're just trying to buy yourself time, Simon. I quite
I
like
am.
that move. It's very, very good,
Yeah.
very subtly done. But having known you for a long time, I know that you do this when you haven't thought of your winner. Right, listen. You could go through a list.
Now you're biding time.
No, I'm not. I know who I'm going to pick. So that's okay. But what I'm trying to say is there are many players who have got a great opportunity to win this weekend. Make no mistake about it.
Before I get you to get your picks, how many of the 96 players do you think are capable of winning this tournament?
What, this weekend?
Yeah.
Between 18 and 20.
Oh, I think it's more. I honestly think
between 18 and 20.
I think you're 30. I think 30, maybe even more, could actually legit win this tournament. That's how volatile this format is. Sorry, this field is.
Yeah, listen. There are where. Okay, I spoke to a top player once, and I said, "What makes you win so much?" And they said, "Anybody, any professional pool player can beat any professional pool player on a given day.
Yeah.
But can you beat me? And then can you beat the next great player? And then can you beat the next great player? And can you keep that consistency going?" So that's probably, that's the overriding factor. All 96 professionals are capable of playing elite pool. The issue is can you play that consistently? And that's why we do tend to see a lot of repetitive things with the winners, because they are used to performing at that standard on a more consistent basis. Listen, I mean, it's killing me, but it's killing me because, like, literally, there's about 5 I want to pick, but obviously I can only pick 2.
Pick one of them. Pick one of them now, then.
All right, okay. I am going to go for Jack Whelan.
Okay.
Very, very impressed by his dedication. Very impressed by the work he puts in. You're not going to have to make him practice. You're not going to have to make him get up for a match. And I think that Pro Cup win is just so big for him that I think that we could be seeing him at the latter end of the tournament this weekend.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we talk a lot about the rankings, and we'll talk more about it as the year goes on. For me, Jack Whelan's a player that he knows how good he is. He knows he's capable of winning these tournaments. He's now taken down 2 Pro Cup and a Pro Series. I think number 1 spot is definitely on his agenda. I think he's a potential number 1. That's how highly I rate Jack Whelan. So he's playing well, obviously, because he won the last tournament. So there's no doubt about it. He's going to be one of the favourites for the tournament. So I think that's an excellent pick. I'm going to go the same way for the same logic. I think Chris Melling has been the most consistent player we've had with Ultimate Pool. He's knocked so hard on the door at the back end of last year. He won early last year. He's won 3 times with Ultimate Pool already. It's amazing that actually the success he had at the end, that he actually didn't win another Pro Series title last year.
Yeah.
But for me, I look at Chris Melling, I think if I pick him now, he's a player that at least I'm going to have somebody in the quarterfinals, because I feel like he's in every quarterfinal.
He is.
Yeah. So I'm going Chris.
He is. No, that's a sound pick from that perspective. He's enjoying his pool as well. I think that's really important. Whenever you speak to him, he's enjoying it, and I think that when these guys are enjoying it, I think that they become very dangerous, because they're not treating it like a job. They're treating it because treating it like they enjoy it. And listen, Chris loves the limelight. He's going to love the fact he's gone viral and been picked up by newspapers and millions of people with his last shot. He's going to want to create more moments like that. And it wouldn't surprise me to see him win this weekend. I spoke to Mick yesterday, actually. So Mick Hill, I spoke to him yesterday very briefly. I don't think he's been putting a lot of practice in, which makes it very difficult for me to pick him.
Yeah, I don't think he ever does. I honestly don't think he ever does. He says he doesn't, and I think he's reached the point in his career where for him it's more about he gets through a couple of rounds. That's his practice. He'll put a little bit of time in his exhibitions, gets him some practice, but I don't think he ever puts the time in. He certainly doesn't compared to the other top players, in my opinion. And that makes him, although he's never, until the last Pro Series, he'd never lost a first round match. It certainly does make him a little bit vulnerable early on, and I don't think he can keep not practicing it because I think it's always going to be somebody putting a performance against him. So he's not feared in the same way that he used to be. So I think that's going to be a challenge for him. And I'm not going to pick Mick Hill, even though I think he's probably the favourite for the event. I'm not going to pick Mick Hill because it's going to be it's just tough, and I think he's a good chance to win the event. Don't get me wrong, but I know he hasn't put the time in. He needs to get through a few matches, and then he becomes dangerous.
Yeah, can't argue with that logic. But listen, I could make a case for another. Like I said, I could make a case for Craig Waddingham. I could make a case right now for Tom Cousins. I can make a case for Gareth Potts. I can make a case for Sean Stott. I can make a case for so many different players to win an event this weekend, which is why this season we're probably not going to get many of these right.
Well, if any.
That's what I mean. It's like it's difficult. The difficulty level to pick from the challengers is hard enough, but take the difficulty level now in the pros is equally as difficult.
So who are you going to go then? Second pick.
Oh, I'm torn here. Very torn here. The fact you said Mick Hill can't win, I'm going to pick Mick Hill.
Okay, I was going to be shocked if you. I would have been shocked if you didn't pick Mick Hill.
I'm going to send in this video.
Yeah, because you feel free to do that, because you'll clearly see I didn't say he can't win. I think he is the actual tournament favourite. Of course he can win. I'm just not going to pick him. I was quite open about that. I don't like going straight to the top like you do. You just pick Mick. You go for it. Okay, so that's your two. You've got Jack Whelan, and we might have to change this because you've got two of the top players on the rankings right now. Two guys riding high, winning tournaments. We probably should have a top pick and a kind of somebody outside the top 10. But
yeah, maybe no, maybe we should. Maybe we should.
Well, let's do that. Let's do that then. So, which one of your two are you going to keep, Jack or Mick?
Jack.
You're going to keep Jack. Okay. So, all right then. Who is your second pick outside?
Is
top
this
10?
Only to go the furthest in the tournament?
No, this is to win. You have to get a winner, so that we've got a kind of top.
That's ridiculous difficulty.
All right, well, let's keep it as is then. Let you have Mick, and I'll just go where I want to go.
All right, go on. You go where you want to go.
Okay, so you're going to go for Mick. I'm just looking down the rankings now to see where I want to go with it. Okay, last year I was blown away. This is how good I think this guy is. And I said this a few times last year. I was blown. The field's incredibly strong. I was still blown away that Gareth Potts didn't win a title other than the pairs. He didn't win an individual title last year. I picked him a few times at these Pro Series weekends. He made a couple of finals, but ultimately he didn't win. I'm not going to pick Gareth Potts. I'll be pleased for him if he wins, but I'm not going to pick Gareth Potts. I think he's like Mick. I think he's one of the big favourites to win the tournament. But I'm going to stay away from that. There's a few people you've mentioned, a lot of them. I think Tom Cousins. He's not. His form is turned around because he's practicing. Assuming he's continued practicing since the Pro Cup, I fully expect him to turn up and play a level. And if he breaks well, then watch out. He always breaks well, but going by the last few tournaments, he's arguably the person to beat. Actually, I'm kind of biding for time. I know exactly who I'm going to pick. I'm going to go somebody. This will go. I'm just scrolling down the rankings. I'm going down to 25th in the rankings. This is how far I like to not just go on favourites.
Go on.
I'm going down to 25th. Carl Boys. I'm going for Carl Boys to win the tournament.
Great player.
Great player. He's phenomenal. For me, he hit the ground running with ultimate pool quicker than I thought he would. Hadn't put much time in on the small table. He's got a 9-ball table at home because obviously he works on the American side of things as a broadcaster. But since joining the tour and investing some time and having some success, he's then now got himself practice facilities. So he is practicing at this version of the game, and he was already dangerous before he started practicing. He's putting the time in. It's hometown. It's at hometown, which if he gets deep like he did, he made the semi-finals last time here. He'll have a crowd in for it, and I think, for me, I just think he's going to win a tournament this year. I really do. I think he's a phenomenal player. His break is amazing. It's truly amazing, and he's a great potter. And he's now starting to get that cue ball control because he's practicing. So I'm going to go for Carl Boys.
I don't think that's a bad pick, and he is somebody this season that he's going to be top 10 by the end of the season. I've got absolutely no doubt about that.
I'm
What did I?
surprised you didn't pick up. I'm surprised you didn't pick up on my 25th in the rankings, because it's very, very false, because he is 25th in the rankings, but he essentially only played 2 tournaments or 2
He's not
weekends. He played
25th
4
in the
tournaments.
rankings, though, is he? He's not
No,
25th
he's
in the
not.
rankings, though. Really, it's like it's a bit of a, as you just said, it's because of the volume of tournaments he's played in. But
Yeah.
this guy, I've said it to you so many times, he's annoyingly good. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. He's annoyingly good because he'll leave himself in a situation where you think he has got no chance of getting out of this, or no chance of potting this ball and getting the white where he needs to put it. And he just has a way of doing it. For me, he played, I've said it to you before, he played shot of the season last year for me.
Yeah, absolutely. He really is a phenomenal player. I'm surprised how much he's got, taken to the game, having not played it for a while, and arguably left the sport before he fully fulfilled his potential. And he had huge success in the American version of the game, and he's come back now, and he's a completely different player now, mentally, on the mental side of the game, than he was when he was original.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, why I think he's more dangerous now than he was. If he'd stayed in this version of the game, there's no doubt in my mind he would have gone on and won everything. He's that level of player.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, he
So,
did come off. He did come make a foray back into English pool a few years ago, and won
the
on the
Supreme
Series.
Exactly, and that just shows you he's phenomenal. He really is. So
he really is.
Yeah. So that's the reason I picked him. There's so many players we haven't even talked about. Shane Thompson, he finished last year, moment of the year last year for me. He finished last year incredibly well. Craig Waddingham went really, really well. Declan Brennan always looks good. Disappointing year. Can he respond? There's so many storylines out there. There's too many players for us to sort of really go in deep about. Stevie Dempsey won twice last year. He finished right up there in the rankings. We haven't even talked about him. I mean, it's incredible. That's how deep this field is. We're trying to pick winners where you can't pick winners, basically.
But then let's think about this from a different perspective. There are going to be a lot of disappointed players at the end of the season too, and that's equally something to consider.
That's one of the big things for me, and this is what fascinates me about the dedication some players have. It's all very well, putting in the time over the last couple of months, knowing this event was coming up, and really putting the time in. But you have to put the time in when the disappointment hits. So let's say you're right, 2 players, somebody's put in 2 solid months of practice. They turn up and they, races to 7, you can easily get beat. Without even getting enough chances to win. You then have to go back to the practice table for the next tournament in a couple of months' time and do it again. And some players, they don't. Some players, they'll take that disappointment and not put the time in. And you have to keep putting it in, even when results don't go your way. That is true dedication. So which players can do that? It's always fascinated me. So definitely one to watch out for. That is the Pro Series. Sorry, Scott, go on.
Well, no, I was going to say, Shane Thompson's the shining example of that last year.
Yeah.
If he'd have got, there's not many more dedicated than Shane. Puts the hours in, does everything right, had no real run in any tournament, had some of the most disgusting pieces of luck go against him across the course of the season. Looked for all intensive purposes that it was going to be a bit of a disappointing season. And in the end, that hard work, practice, everything he puts in paid off. So it goes to show you've also got to be very mentally strong playing on this circuit, because I think somebody with lesser mental strength, might have given up the ghost and just ripped the season off.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It fascinates me, that does. It really does. I mean, the psychology of sport in general fascinates me. One final thing I want to talk about in the Pro Series, actually, we've doubled our number of French pro players. Yannick Beaufils has been added, Black Ball champion from last year. He's coming along with Christophe Lambert. Christophe he knocked the ball pretty hard last year. Did well, a couple of semis along the way. I think might even be 3 semis along the way. Yannick obviously riding high, playing some great ball at the moment as well. This is a similar sort of question to the sort of Harriet joining Emma on the Pro Series. Does Yannick turning up help Christophe having an extra French player on there, or is it one of those, there's a rivalry, they want to finish above each other? Or does it have no effect whatsoever?
I think it's a bit of both, actually. I think, although Christophe does speak English, it's limited. which obviously will make it harder when you come across to an event where not many people speak French. So just having a familiar voice in a familiar language is going to help from a Yannick Christophe perspective. And listen, he's got somebody he can run alongside as well, and that's really massive because Yannick went through this huge purple patch last season when he was playing black ball, and also at the WEPF World Championships.
Yeah.
Yannick is a quality player. For people who haven't seen Yannick was a couple of balls from potentially being a world champion at some point, a world champion in the WEPF version of the game many years ago. So if you used to watch during the golden era of pool, you would be very familiar with Yannick. I mean, he's never changed the fact he's a class act. Listen, I love Christophe Lambert. I love watching him play. There's just something very special and very magical about Christophe Lambert. He didn't attend all of the events last season. Let's put that out there. So his ranking is a bit of a false economy.
21. Yeah.
21. Yeah. I mean, how many events he didn't? I think he missed 2 Pro Series weekends.
Yeah.
And finished 21st. I mean, what does that tell you? I mean, I think if he'd have even just turned up to the other events, he'd probably be like 19, just for turning up. Yeah. But like I say, with Christophe, class act, Yannick, class act, they're going to be rivals as well. There's going to be that's another storyline to talk about. And also gives our French viewers 2 of the greatest French players of all time that they can watch in the comfort of their own home via the Opera app.
Absolutely, and both Yannick and Christophe are big dangers to win this event. Make no mistake about it. There'll be people that are new to the sport going, "Well, Yannick Beaufils, if he was a world champion in blackball last year and he made the World Masters final and went deep in the WEPF Worlds as well, surely he's got to be a big favourite." Well, yeah, he is a big favourite, and this is where it may be slightly controversial or maybe makes no sense to people outside the pool world, but there's no doubt that winning a Pro Series title is harder than winning the Black Ball World Championships or the WEPF World Championships. The field is just stronger. There's no doubt about it.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Well, Jack even said to us him winning the Pro Cup was bigger than him winning the World Championships.
Yeah, well, in terms of ranking, he won the Pro Series, Pro Series, Pro Cup. Pro Cup's the top, Pro Series second, and then the World Championships. It just shows you what and that's that's from his opinion, and I think most of the players agree with him. Don't get me wrong, that world title is special, and we haven't even mentioned the world champion. We haven't even mentioned Ronan McCarthy yet in the players champion. I mean, he had that purple patch last year, 5 straight tournament victories across mini series, world championships, world masters, and a Northern Irish event. But he's got to be a danger as well. He really has.
Yeah, he's never going to reach the highs of that 8-week period he had. Never. That is that is the most unbelievable run that we've probably ever seen in the history of pool from that perspective. I don't know. I think that this is kind of more of if I were in Ronan's shoes, I'd be thinking more of consolidating this season as opposed to looking to replicate those highs. Maybe I'm just being a little bit cautious there.
I think what because we were certainly you were saying it is at the beginning of the end for Ronan, and it may well still be. He's had a purple patch. There's no doubt about it. But I think he now, because he's won the Players Championship more than the World Championships and the World Masters, because for the same reason we talked about with Yannick. Don't get me wrong, special titles and titles he fully deserved and had to play incredible pool to win. But the fact that he won the Players Championship, coupled with those other events, to me, I think he now knows on this stage he's still got it and he can still win. So Ronan, he's the sort of player I could see not having a consistent year, so not like Chris Melling's quarterfinal. I see him maybe having a few early losses, tough matches, but then when he turns up and plays well and gets the opportunities, all of a sudden I can see him winning a tournament. That's the sort of season I'm expecting him to have. It's almost kind of the season he had last year, really. Couple of really early exits, but then he takes down some big titles as well. So that is what I'm expecting for Ronan McCarthy. May well be this weekend. Who knows? Certainly won't go by our picking, Scott, because we're, as you said, it's so hard to pick well, isn't it?
It is. Like I say, it's I mean, I just feel a bit guilty that on the show we're not going to have time to go through everybody because like
No, I want to, but we
96 is
can't.
quite
Yeah.
is yeah 96 is quite a lot, and if we've forgotten some of your fan favourites, just like let us know if you want us to kind of give our opinion of what their season might look like.
Yeah, and feel free to message in and give Scott some rubbish and some stick for not talking about the player that you think we should be talking about.
Definitely.
We've had our picks. Yeah, we've had our picks. That is the Pro Series. All gets underway on Thursday, Thursday afternoon. The finals on Saturday for the first one, Sunday on for the second one, and we'll be focusing on the Pro Series all weekend long. We will also be focusing on the Women's Series, certainly towards the back end of the weekend. We'll be focusing on the Women's Series. I know, Scott, we're both very, very passionate about the Women's Series. And I think this year is going to be bigger and better. I think the field's got deeper. It's got tougher. Are we going to see... I think we've got an established 3 players on Ultimate Pool side of things. We've got Harriet Haynes won twice last year. Amy Beecham won twice last year. They split the Women's Series titles. Harriet just edging the rankings. But we also had Emma winning the 2 non-ranked event in the mini-series, which is essentially the same field. So essentially 6 tournaments last year, split 2, 2 and 2. And I'm going to throw Barbara Taylor into that because she won the World Masters and the World title. She didn't play on Ultimate Pool. So there's 3 from Ultimate Pool, and now Barbara Taylor joins. I think we've got 4 established top quality winners. Are we going to see those 4 battle it out for the major honours, or are we going to see the players knocking on the door, the new players that now that there's a stage worthy of it are starting to really put their name forward? We saw Megan Proctor make the final last time out, which are absolutely fantastic. There's some other players that are really kind of knocking on the door to break through, and they are top players, but like we said, top players, but now elevate yourself to the winner's circle. What are you expecting this year?
I'm probably going to get this completely wrong, but I fully expect Barbara Taylor to make an impact. She will win a tournament this year. Make no mistake about that. She's too good not to. And let's be honest, during the course of the WEPF World Championship, she beat Harriet Haynes and Emma Cunningham over the course of the 2 different tournaments. So she's not afraid of beating Emma. She's not afraid of beating Harriet. So there's no argument there. I genuinely think that for Amy, there's less pressure on her. And Amy's unassuming anyway. So, she just goes along, plays her pool, unassuming. But I think she's kind of got a free roll this year. Because I think that Harriet and Emma have got real difficulty because you've got to focus on the pro event and then potentially you've got to focus on the ladies event. And I think where it becomes really interesting is the crossover on the Saturday.
Yes.
When Pro Event 2 starts.
I think it helps them that the first Pro Event is Thursday, so they don't have to worry about the Women's Series. There's no crossover on the Tournament 1 essentially. I mean, to get through, so depending on there will be 3 matches I think they have to win to get through. Might be 2 to get through to Friday. I'm not sure off the top of my head. It's either 2 or 3 matches to get through to Saturday. So there may be, depending on how they do, there may not be a crossover on Tournament 1. But yeah, when we get deep into the Women's Series really taking effect Saturday, Sunday, then yeah, absolutely could be some logistical problems there for them. So yeah, that can have an effect.
Yeah, but listen, they'll prove us wrong. I mean, for us, we're lucky because we've now got 4 very special ladies players competing in the ladies series this year. But also, Danielle Randall's got to have a look at herself this year. She's knocked on the door many times throughout the course of the last 2 years. She's got to take that step, not to put any extra pressure on her, but she's very good.
Let's take a look at the top 10 from last year and sort of highlight see which players we think might need to sort of do what you say, because I agree with you on Danielle. There you go. See, Harriet and Amy finished 1 and 2. Alexandra Cunha, she finished 3, which is an amazing achievement. And can she make the breakthrough to the winners' enclosure? Mika Rooney, we know, is a winner. She's won major tournaments before, but hasn't done it on the Ultimate Pool stage. Sandy King, Megan Proctor made that final. Lauren Whitmore, Emma Cunningham, disappointing 8th, but remember her 2 titles were non-ranked. Danielle Randall and Sharon James completes the top 10. They're all back again. And yeah, I look at someone like Danielle, who we know is working hard. Some of these other players are also working really, really hard. Can they make the breakthrough into that winners' enclosure? It's a big story for me, that.
Yeah, why not? Why not at all? I mean, we loved the ladies' game. Harriet looked like a formidable opponent at the start of the year, and it was like, oh my goodness. Then when she lost a couple of times, she lost that air of invincibility. So maybe players don't fear Harriet as much as they did 12, 18 months ago. Amy, these players will have been used to playing. They know she's a great player, very consistent. Emma's been beaten by people last season who, if you'd have went to the bookies, you'd have got a very long odds on Emma losing those matches. The more these players get used to playing in these conditions, the more they get used to playing these players, the more likely we are to see a brand new player break through, and we need it. We need it in the game. Make no mistake about it. But I think we're entering a golden era of women's ball.
Yeah, I think we could well be. I think the stage is set for them now to really grab it and run with it, and I think we're going to see that. We're seeing the ladies really putting the time in, really working hard. And like I say, I think we've got our established 4 winners, but I think we've got players that are now capable of making the breakthrough and actually making that a big fit, become like the Pro Series, where it is how are we going to have a pick, because it's so spread and so deep. So yeah, I'm really excited to see that. Yeah, definitely an event I'm really looking forward to. Gets underway on Friday. It's played in group formats like it was last year. The groups are seeded on last year's rankings. Group stages, top 2 go through to the main event, bottom 2 go through to the plate event. So it's all about finishing in that top 2, get yourself in the main event, and then it goes to knockout stages. And we'll be covering the event. You can see all the scores online, but we'll be covering the event from the back end onwards, quarterfinal onwards. You'll get to see all the action, which is very exciting. Some of the best matches we got to see last year were from the women's series. Megan Proctor against Harriet Haynes in the last weekend was absolutely special, very fantastic, going to the 6-red shootout, hugely dramatic, and I'm expecting plenty more of the same. Scott, should we jump in and have some picks? Or yeah, let's have some picks. I'm just thinking it must be me to go first, is it?
It's you to go first, mate.
Me
I know where you're going to go.
Do you? Okay. Where am I going?
You're going to pick Amy Beecham.
I am going to pick Amy Beecham. Yeah, absolutely. I picked her. She won last time. Last time I picked her, she won. I was always going to pick from that top 4. And yeah, I just think she's dedicated herself to the game again. I think she won early last year, and then she had a dip. But I think in that dip, she kind of wasn't putting the time in. I think that's given her a little bit of a kick to say, hang on a minute. Everyone was talking about Harriet. Everyone was talking about Emma. And she was like, hang on a minute, I'm still here. And she hit the practice table. She started putting the time in again. And I think she was fantastic in the last event. I think she played her worst match of the tournament in the final. But up until the final, I thought she was absolutely flawless. And I think she's going to be the major threat for this tournament.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go a little bit left field, Simon, because I'm going to pick an unranked player. Because I'm okay. Okay. I'm going to go for Barbara Taylor. I think Barbara is going to be very dangerous this weekend. She is chomping at the bit to play. Can't wait to play on the Ottoman Pool stage. Imagine, though, you drawing her. She's unranked. So this season, she's going to pop up in some groups and cause all sorts of trouble in those groups. Listen, for me, I wouldn't be shocked to see Harriet win. I wouldn't be shocked to see Emma win. But they've got big weekends also from the Pro Series. So it's how they cope and how they game manage through the Pro Series.
Yeah, I was just looking for Barbara Taylor's group. She's got Nikki Comrie, she's got Amanda Sweetmore, and Lynn Blackshaw as her group. So yeah, she could have been drawn in a group with Amy, Harriet. She could have been, that could have happened. It did not happen on this occasion. Worth pointing out that the groups for future Women's Series events will be on the current year's rankings. So if she was to run deep in this tournament, then she could be up there in the rankings and avoid some of that happening. So no surprise to see you going, Barbara. Interestingly, I think we may be heading towards us. We talked about, is it going to be the established, we're calling in the top 4. Is it going to be from the established top 4? Is somebody else going to break through? We could end up all picking the top 4 here. A player that I haven't mentioned, neither of us have mentioned yet, that I actually think is going to have a great season. Wasn't part of the top 10 last year, but I think Kirsty Davies is definitely going to be a name to watch out for.
Very good
Former
player.
world champion, and I think because the pool world wasn't really going anywhere, I think she not lost her way, but just lost interest and hasn't played as much. But I think with what Ultimate Pool are doing, she's now putting the time back in. She's now going to commit herself to it. You saw her in the mini-series last year. She looked so much better in mini-series 2 than she did mini-series 1. She went okay in the last Women's Series event of the year without setting a roller light. I think she's going to be big-time dangerous, and I'm really tempted to pick her. But because there is a forfeit at the end of the year on this, I can't not pick from the established 4, and I want to toss a coin between Emma and Harriet, but I think Emma's going to finally get her hands on a Women's Series title, so I'm going to go Emma.
Oh wait, I thought you were going to go Amy Beecham.
No, I did. We're gonna. Oh, we only get one. No, we get 2 picks. No, we only get 1 pick, don't we?
Only get 1 pick.
We only get 1 pick.
Oh. Yeah. What are you doing? You're trying
you could
to
have stopped me there.
Picks. Wow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because of course there's 2 tournaments.
I was like, where is going here?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought we were going to end up. Yeah. All right. So I picked Amy.
You did.
If Emma wins now, can I get it? Does it count?
No, absolutely not.
No. Okay. Well, whilst I'm mentioning the forfeit, just mention that if you we haven't decided on the forfeit for this year. We're waiting to Scott do this year's forfeit before we decide on next year's. But if you've got any ideas, make sure you message in and let us know what you think. We'll decide over the course of the next few weeks. That is the Women's Series then. All gets underway on Friday night. Really looking forward to the Women's Series this year. It should be absolutely fantastic all year long. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the matches, getting to commentate on some of the matches later in the tournament as well. Scott, Challenger Series. I mean, how are we even meant to pick players from the Challenger Series?
It's ridiculous. I mean, it's just so hard. It's really, really hard to do. It's hard enough to pick somebody to get to the last 16, let alone win the thing. It was such an interesting year last year on the Challenger Series. Obviously, it expanded from the previous year with a lot more players in. It's the same format this year, but there were a few players that probably flattered to deceive in their rankings, but there are some players that massively underperformed in terms of what they'd achieved previously in the game. So look, it's a Shark Tank. It's horrible. I don't actually really want to pick somebody from it because it's so hard.
Do you think we've got a player? I don't think we've got a player. So the first 2 years of the Challenger Series, we had a player, certainly with Craig Waddingham joined halfway through the Challenger Series, almost looked a little bit out of place because he is a world-class player. Doing what he did was still phenomenal. It was still amazing to achieve what he did. And to almost the same feeling with Callum Singleton. He's a world-class player and had to do it through the Challenger Series because he didn't take the pro status he was offered originally. And he's gone and done that. I don't think we've got anyone like that. We were all expecting Callum to go really well last year, and he did. I think we're back we've got 288 players, and we are going to. There's so many of these players could finish towards the top of the rankings and get themselves pro status for the following year. I don't think we have that one that sort of stands out and says he will definitely finish top 16. I just think it's way too volatile.
I don't know. I think there's one. I can think of at least one that will finish top 16.
Who are you thinking for that? What's your thinking?
Jake Dillon Newlove. I think he's nailed on. I think he's too good not to be top 16.
He's the man that missed out last year. 17th he was. Yeah.
And maybe Mark Gray as well. Mark Gray, if he turns up and performs well, if he turns it on, he's an unbelievable player. But you've also
playing the game. He hasn't played much of the game before, so he's starting to really learn it.
But you kind of got to look at some of the players that, like I think of like a Ricky Jones. Ricky Jones is a lot better than his ranking said last season. He just didn't get any results or get any traction. So for some of these players that have kind of got the talent, got the ability, it's how they approach the tournaments. And I think you kind of, fitness played a huge part in people winning those tournaments last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's different to most tournaments they get to play in because all these guys a lot of them are winners. They win whether it's local, regional, whatever it is. They win tournaments, 1-day events, 2-day events in their clubs. But you're talking about winning a 64-man field as opposed to winning a 288-man field. It's a different beast altogether. because you've got to be on it from ball one, short races, 288 runners. You're winning 10 or 11 matches to win a tournament. That's just not easy. You've got to play well all the way through. I think, but I asked how many people could win on the Pro Series, and you sort of said maybe 20. How many could win on the Challenger Series? How many of those 288 players are actually capable of winning the tournament?
Legitimately, 100.
Yeah.
There's 100 of them capable of winning.
At least 100 for me. At least there's 100 players there that I ran through the list. I ran through the draw this morning just to sort of see if there any names jumped out. And there's a few players I hadn't even known had entered this year. And I was like, wow, yeah, he can go well. He can go. And before you know it, you've got there's 100 players there that I think would not surprise me to see win that tournament. That is how tough it is here, and we've got to have a pick.
Yeah.
Should we jump straight into the picks?
To
we'll run through some of the names while we're having the picks, and I'll let you go first because why not?
There's a few players I liked last year. Like I like Jamie Burnett. I think he's just
I really do.
Quality curious. He plays so well. But it depends how he approaches it, I guess, from his perspective. What has he been putting the time in? Has he been putting the effort in? Probably. Listen, I'm gonna give Jake Dillon Newlove a go because I mentioned him first, and it was like criminal that he finished 17th last season. The guy's a class act. I mean, he beat Mick Hill in the Masters.
Yeah, in a race to 8 as well. That's
in a race to 8.
It's not a race to 4. Yeah, no, he was good value for it. Big fan of Jake in his game. I actually think he'll. I can't say I think he'll win a tournament because like we said, there's 100 winners there. But I think he's definitely one that will fancy winning a tournament this year for sure. He's that good. Okay, so you're going to go Jake with your first pick. I've made a list of players here, and I just don't even know where to start. I think Jamie Burnett's going to have a great year. I really do. I think last year was his first year. He stopped. Obviously, if you don't know, Jamie Burnett, former world snooker player, actually holds a record for the highest professional break because it is possible to have more than a maximum. But last year was his first real year playing pool. He has played bits and pieces in the past, but this last year he dedicated himself to it, and he got better and better as the year went on. He's actually a player that I think could have got the wild card, from a challenger wild card. He finished outside the top 16, but he's obviously new to the game, learning the game, and he actually had a great finish to the year. He went deep in the last couple of tournaments, so I think Jamie Burnett's definitely a great shout. I like the look of a few players. I'm interested to see how Morgan McInnes goes this year. I think Morgan, obviously son of a legend of the game. I think maybe he feels a bit of pressure from that, but he definitely got a lot of game. He's impressed me every time I get to see him play. Fascinated to see if he can have a good year and put his name in the ring for a potential promotion, or even take down a title. I like the look of Ian Whitehorn. He went deep a couple of times last year. I like the look of him. I like the look of Andy Blurton's a player I was shocked that didn't finish top 16 last year. Truly shocked he didn't finish top 16. Ryan Pisani from Malta, I like the look of him. Sean Sharkey, when he played in Ireland, Nicolani, was so entertaining to watch. I'd love to see him have a deep run and win one of these events. I'm stalling for time because I don't know which way to go. Come on, I'm going to go Jamie Burnett. Why not?
Yeah, why not? You made some good. We get two picks.
We get 2 picks. Yeah.
You also didn't mention Lee Kendall.
Yeah, I didn't. I would. I think he's, in terms of CV, he's probably got the best CV in the Challenger Series. But he's good. I just don't see. I mean, I don't see somebody that's got as much on their plate as Lee has as being the CEO of Ultimate Pool. I don't see him. I don't see him putting the time in to play to the level he can play at. I'm not saying he can't win a tournament. Of course he can, but I just don't see him being prepared enough. I think he'd need a good draw, and to get through a couple of rounds to get some form and get going, and then he's dangerous. I just don't see him preparing for tournaments to play to the level that he knows he can play at. And I also know he's not a player that enjoys not playing to the level he knows he can. So I think that will really hurt and frustrate him. So it's almost he's in that sort of spot where he's probably thinking, should I just retire and focus on being CEO, or should I actually put the time in and dedicate myself to it? And I get where he's coming from with that sort of mindset. I'd love to see him win a tournament. Don't get me wrong, but I would be somewhat surprised, just not because he's not good enough, but just because he's not going to have the time to be able to prepare.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair comment there. There's also a couple of other players. Aidan Hughes is another player who was literally was in the 16 until the last, I think the last tournament he was in the 16. So he would have been bitterly disappointed that he didn't make it as a pro, and he's a really steady player. So it'd be interesting to see how he goes this year. I've got to pick another one.
Well, I'll give you some time to think about your next one, because I want to just build on the back of your last comment. He would have been very disappointed to not finish in the 16 because he was there throughout the year. And he was also one of the players that was, outspoken about the fact that they didn't like some of the wild cards that were announced of challenges, because there are challenges that were lower ranked. Amir Riyad was right down the rankings, didn't play that many events. I don't think you can even take his ranking into consideration personally. But for the players and the people that were critical of the wildcard challenges that were announced, that finished outside the top 16 and were then promoted, you have to let your queue do the talking. I get it. I understand where you're coming from. I understand why you're upset. You want to be in the pro ranks, but if you are one of the people doing that, you equally finished outside the top 16 and didn't earn it yourself. So whether you earned it more than some of the players that did get announced, that's up for debate. But so for players like Aidan, go out there and prove it now. Top 16 this year. Let's do. If you've done it, you were close last year. Now, rather than being disappointed and upset with whatever outside things that you can't control, go out there and prove it now.
Wow, I feel like you told him off there.
No, I wasn't picking on him specifically. Just there's a few players
like
that were outwardly outspoken about it.
If I was Aidan, I'd be looking for you.
What I would say is that's how his attitude should be. I get why he will feel upset, because there's certainly players that he deserved it more than that have been announced. But don't get me wrong. Rather than it's so easy to sort of go the other way and go, oh, it's really unfair, and get annoyed by it. Great, you've now got an opportunity. It's a clean slate. Everybody's starts on zero. You've got 10 tournaments now. Go out there and finish top 16, and then turn around and say you got it wrong. That's what I want to see. I want to see a player with that attitude.
Does that mean you're backing him for Challenger event too?
Probably not. just because there's so many players to pick from.
Wow, you've got no faith in young Aidan.
I won't be shocked to see him win it. I know that.
No, he is a quality player. He's a very, very good player, and he should do well this season. But for the second event, it's just so Andy Blurton.
I was just about to say to you, I know who I'm picking with my second pick, and you've gone and picked him. I was going to go for Andy Blurton. I was shocked he didn't finish top 16 last year. I think he's a standout.
Great player.
Really do. Great player with one of the best breaks you'll ever see. And while we're talking about the crossovers, because there's so many pool players that are great snooker players, this guy's a maximum snooker player. So he was back in his day. So it just shows you the level. Andy, great pick. Which way do I go? Now I'm stalling. While I'm stalling, I'm gonna give myself a little bit of time here. We've run through all these players. You haven't picked your co-host, right? You haven't picked your podcast co-host. Where's Dan Wells in your list?
Well, I mean, he had some really good results last season. Certainly results that I didn't expect him to get. He beat some really good players along the way. Look, Dan's dangerous on his day, absolutely no doubt about that. But does he have the stamina to go through? He played his last 16 match at like 11:30 at night, and he was half asleep. So he needs to sort his stamina out before he's going to win one of these events. And if he does, on his day, he can beat anybody.
Well, you say sort his stamina out. He's got to cover you on the podcast table.
That's what I'm saying. Sort his stamina out.
You two are there, doing it. So he's doing it in the same way as Kenny a little bit. He's doing a dual role. He's there working, on the podcast table and playing. That's really hard to do. Look, I know how good Dan is. I played him in competition. He's a great player.
He's never lost to you, has he, Simon?
No, he's never lost to me. Lots of good players.
You a lot, hasn't he?
Yeah, a lot of good players in the same boat as Dan, though. Yeah. It's hard to do what he does. It's hard to do both. It's hard to have the stamina. But he's a great player. I'm a big fan of Dan's game. Heavily involved, obviously, in ultimate ball coaching as well. which is great to see that expanding.
You're still stalling, Simon.
I am stalling. Ian Whitehorn. There you go. No more stalling.
Okay.
There. Out. Done it. Picked. Our 4 players could easily lose first round. That's how tough this is.
Of course they could. Of course they could.
Yeah.
Of course
If the Challenger Series is what you want to watch, though, this weekend, we will be covering the back end of the Challenger matches, but make sure you go onto Ultimate Pool's website and you can then check out all the scores, see how the players you want to do are doing, if they're getting on well or not. You'll be able to check it all out, all the scores, all the way through the competition, and we'll be focusing on the semi-finals onwards towards the back end of the competition, so Sunday for some of the Challenger matches. That is our picks then for this weekend's action. All gets underway on Thursday, Scott. I'm excited. I really am. It's the start. It feels, I know we've had the Pro Cup, but this feels like the start of season 3 with Ultimate Pool. I feel like we've made good step forwards. We've seen things change each year. Big expansion again this year. I'm very excited to see all the players turn up and see how this weekend goes.
It's a big year for Ultimate Pool all around. It's like, the honeymoon period's over. And now this is the time to create something, to make it far more established, to take it to a far wider audience. We've got no problem about the product on the table, because the product on the table is absolutely incredible. It's just now is the time to introduce Ultimate Pool to as many people as kind of can see it, so that, Ultimate Pool can reach their end goal of getting this to become more of a mainstream sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the game's in good hands. Obviously, I get to see behind the curtain a little bit doing the job I do. I think the game's in great hands. I'm excited to see what's going to happen from here. More than anything, I'm excited to see what the players deliver on the table. One final thing just to mention. I was going to mention this as part of the Challenger Series, but just a nice little extra. Aaron the Pool Shark, Aaron Van Koppenol, is playing in this event. About the fact we've got the snooker stars coming over and playing. Which is great for our game. They're all very, very well-known people, but so is Aaron. In the modern world, Aaron is a big name. He's a big following on social media. Having him play in the event, and he'll be doing plenty of social media stuff for himself and for Ultimate Pool at the event. It's great to see Aaron playing. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he gets on. I hope I get to go and see one of his matches. I think that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, he's great fun, a really nice person. The big thing for me as well is, if you are in the Blackpool area, come in and watch it. It's free to watch. Literally, you've got the world's best players on your doorstep. Come and watch. Yeah,
definitely come and watch, and definitely watch online as well. Scott, thank you very, very much. Thanks for having the picks. Look forward to you actually finally getting up to Blackpool. I'm just looking out now. The sun's shining, mate. You want to get here quickly so that we can get your forfeit done. You will be going.
You just missed me, Simon. You just missed me, Simon.
Missed you as well. I miss you going in the open. Make sure you bring your swimsuit and some warm clothing to put on afterwards, because it's still pretty cold out there.
Some towels, some gloves.
But I'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you tune in though. Thursday afternoon, all the action begins, and it will be live and exclusive on Ultimate Pool TV throughout the weekend long. Make sure you subscribe. Scott, there's a subscriber code as well we should mention, isn't there?
Yes, I'm trying to remember what this subscriber code is, but it gets Pro Series. It gets you a £10 discount for the year. I think there's 10 Pro event tournaments that you get to watch, as in 10 Pro Series tournaments you get to watch. You get the WPF World Championships mini series.
There's so much on there. There's a lot of content on there as well, so well worth it.
I'm also told that Ultimate Pool will be announcing a couple of other tournaments over the course of the coming weeks and months, and you'll get that as part of your subscription.
That is very, very excited indeed. So if you aren't a subscriber already, then make sure you do subscribe using the code Pro Series. Get your discount, and then you can tune in for all the action throughout the weekend. Scott, thank you for your company. Thank you for your picks. I'll see you when you get up to Blackpool. And thank you all for watching. Make sure you tune in. All the action gets underway on Thursday. We're live and exclusive all weekend long till Sunday night. Tune in, and we'll see you on the show.